Hello and welcome to the show. Now, the Goodwood Festival of Speed is not just about the race cars. No matter what your favourite vehicle may be, there's a very good chance you will be able to find at least one of them around the place. I found this in GTR that happens to be for sale. Also, not very often do you get kind of video bombed by the red arrows. They are somewhere over there. Good luck if you can spot them. On the video, they were flying around. Tried to film them, but yeah, they buggered off pretty quickly. This was all filmed within just sort of the supercar car park. Basically, these are all visitors' cars that have turned up, and there's just a huge variety of interesting stuff around here, from Aston Martins, Lamborghinis, a white and purple GTR. I really do quite like the little purple trim bits on that GTR. Plenty of Porsches, as you can imagine, all sorts of different generations of the 911 all over the place. This one in particular being one of my favourites that I came across, and this was all filmed on just one of the days. I didn't get a chance to venture out here in the other ones, but just so many interesting vehicles, and I just love we've got a Mercedes G-Wagon, an Audi R8, a Bentley Continental and a Jaguar F-Type, just all parked next to one another. One of my favourite finds, this Aston Martin Vantage. I don't know if it's the V600 model or one of the other ones, but yeah, I love this. This is kind of one of the very few, if not the only, sort of British muscle car that we've ever made. It's perhaps not the greatest handling of vehicles, but I think it looks fantastic and is, yeah, really rather crazy. I love this, just parked next to an Escort RS Turbo, and there's a new 911. Managed to find a proper FailRace vehicle. This Noble, not quite got the black stripes, but it's about as close as you're going to get. I'm pretty impressed with it. I also love the course we have to have a relatively mighty wing. Not bad, certainly, for a road car. So yeah, there are a few kind of orange McLarens around, but certainly this Noble gets closest to a proper FailRace car, and then just happens to be parked behind it, I think, a rather old Bentley. I imagine this was quite an interesting one, sort of sitting in and queuing to get into the car parks in. It's yeah, it's certainly something very, very different. My favourite of the cars out here, though, the Ferrari 360 Challenge. It is one of my favourite supercars of all time. I know it's perhaps I'm perhaps in the minority with that one. There's a Porsche 918 Ferrari F12 behind it, Jaguar F-Type. There's all sorts of stuff out here. On the left is a McLaren P1, I believe. But yeah, there's me most excited about finding a 360 Challenge. I do love these cars, and I was very happy to be able to locate one. Unfortunately, I didn't come across any Vipers. I don't know if there were them on other days, but either the older Dodge Vipers or the new SRT Viper. Never happened to see one. Inside the actual festival itself, well, there was a fair few classic cars to drool over, this Mercedes Gullwing being one of them. This was undoubtedly one of the crazier vehicles. It's called the Whiskey Runner, essentially a hot rod, and I do love that this rather interesting and unique, and judging by the looks of it, rather uncomfortable. I imagine doing long journeys inside that vehicle would be a huge amount of fun. And I love that it is parked next to a Dakar Mini and a racing 911. And I think that was one of the 911s that was in the shootout as well, one of the fastest cars going up the hill climb course. And then just next to it is this classic hot rod. I don't know, I didn't see the hot rod at any point going up the hill climb course, but it could have done. There were some classic muscle cars. Admittedly, yes, these were the racing version of Ford Galaxie. Now, these are rather rare vehicles, certainly. There was a 600 horsepower version, I believe, making it the most powerful muscle car at the time, but not very many of them were sold because, well, they were incredibly dangerous. You can imagine having that much power in what weren't exactly the easiest of cars to drive at the best of times. This one, though, being a racing version, slightly less power, not quite the crazy 600 horsepower, but it is an absolutely massive car, and everything has been stripped out in an attempt to try and make it as light as possible. I imagine it still weighs a rather large sum, and next to it, well, a rather famous Dodge Charger over here. It was great to see these vehicles around the place. Not quite a mighty wing on this one, and a wing that was kind of taped around the edges, I think. But yeah, seeing these vehicles was fantastic. Sadly, I did have a few videos get corrupted on the GoPro memory card, so I don't have any footage of the Charger driving. I did see it at launch. I do have the Galaxie though. Now, Porsche did have a rather spectacularly large stand showing off many of their new vehicles. However, out of all of them, the one that caught my eye, this classic 911, would probably be what I would have out of the lot of them. Nissan had also bought some of their classic Skylines. Now, as most of you guys will know, I am much more of a muscle car person. However, I can appreciate a rather nice R34 Skyline. There was also an R33 and one of the original Skylines. You can just about see them in the background. Sadly, that was more footage that got corrupted. These were, well, some of the most popular cars that I saw. Very hard to actually get near them. Huge crowds of people. I managed to find a relatively quiet moment here to film. Yeah, lots of people were interested in them ones, as you can imagine. Up next to Lamborghini, well, there was a bright purple Diablo, because, well, Lamborghinis are at best when they're absolutely crazy. I do like the Diablo. It is very much a Lamborghini. It's got a pretty almighty. I don't know if it quite beats the Noble, but yeah, not many cars can pull off that sort of purple colour and still look quite as incredible as the Diablo. Now, Honda had some NSXs. The new one was here, although, again, the ones that caught my attention, pair or the two older generations, especially when you have an orange NSX. I'm always going to gravitate towards that one. I do like the new NSX to an extent. Yeah, I think it's a decent looking car, although for me personally, I would much rather have the older vehicles. Lexus had some interesting cars, actually. The LC500 is really rather nice sort of sports coupe. Unfortunately, when I was wandering around the LC500 and the LFA, that was more footage that they got knackered. There's also this RCF kind of touring car style, very un-Lexus-y vehicle. But again, another car that I did like, and a fairly mighty wing. I did happen to come across the muscle cars. It's always good to find a Shelby Mustang Super Snake with the bonnet up. Have a look around the engine. You can't really go wrong with a good muscle car. Of course, while everyone's flocking around the Ferraris and so on, there's me, who is much more interested in a Shelby Mustang and a Corvette Grand Sport. I can't say I'd seen the kind of new Grand Sport. I think it looks fantastic. A homage to the older cars livery. It does work very, very well on this new car. So yeah, there wasn't a huge amount of the muscle cars, but the ones that were there were pretty damn impressive, as you would imagine. Mercedes had the new AMG GTR. I'm not sold on the front grille particularly. I don't know, there's something about it that is a little bit on the peculiar side. It does look a lot better from the back. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's just not completely sold on the car. However, the engine is rather noisy. I also love when I was just wandering around, happened to turn about, and there was the new Aston Martin one-off GT12 Vantage. And Jaguar were, well, showing off the F-Type in about the best way possible. the Saturday when things got wet, the F-Types were having an awful lot of fun. Aston Martin Vulcan up next to the hypercars. This possibly the most popular of all of the vehicles. Huge crowds around this car at pretty much all times, especially when they fired the vehicle up. Yeah, by far one of the hardest cars to get close to. With good reason. I do like the Vulcan, you know, very, very, very crazy hypercar. This one, however, to me it doesn't quite beat the Koenigsegg. I do prefer the 1-1, and surprisingly this one wasn't actually a massively popular car. Good news for me, it meant that I could wander around and get close to this vehicle with its pretty crazy rear wing setup. I love the number plate they had on it as well. Yeah, I was surprised actually. Expected that car to be kind of more popular. Bugatti, of course, were showing off the new Chiron. Now, I've never been a huge fan of the Veyron. I do prefer this new car. I mean, it's still very recognisable as a Bugatti, and I do prefer the 1-1. But yeah, the Chiron is a pretty damn nice vehicle. There were a fair amount of the kind of race cars for the road, they called them. An Ariel Atom 3.5R. I do love sort of wandering around these cars because of all of the, you know, the often exposed kind of inner workings. You can have a good look at all of the various bits and pieces. There was a Lotus 311. Now, the Lotus 211 is kind of infamous to me from Forza 4 being, you know, stupendously quick car. This 311 I think is even better looking than the 211. Gloriously simple inside there with about 3 buttons, you know, but that's all you need to get the car working. I imagine ludicrously fast. This one would be another engine kind of poking out of the rear cover. Now, all of these vehicles were likely to have some mighty wings. Perhaps my favourite of these kind of road legal race cars, the Praga R1R. It's kind of like a mini LMP car for the road. A rather impressive wing as well at the back. I really like the look of this car. I really think it's a fantastic looking little track car. Is as I said, you know, easily one of my favourites. Radical were here with the RXC Turbo with a glorious engine bay. I tweeted a photo of this engine. I imagine it probably wouldn't look as glorious and clean after a few runs, but yeah, having a look around these things, they are seriously impressive vehicles. There was a Vul RR, one of the cars that came close in the quest for a FailRace vehicle. It's a little yellower than it is orange. Again, another one with a fairly impressive wing on the back of it. But yeah, it was pretty close to a FailRace car. I also managed to kind of stumble across heaven, really. This was a company that deals in replica cars. A huge amount of Shelby Cobras here. Only 45 grand. I mean, that's doable. It's about the same price as the GTR that I happened to find at the start, and I know exactly what I would have. Yeah, they look absolutely fantastic. I'd love to own a genuine one of these, but finding one of these, it would be rather difficult in England. So, yeah, this was very much kind of heaven. There was a lot as well in this particular area. But to finish it all off, I did actually get to have a go up the course as a passenger in an Aston Martin.
Pretty wet, isn't it? Just a little bit down it. It's just mud and crap all over. Yeah. I don't know what's been going on. Someone's had an off somewhere. This is really hard to see in this car because of the dash. Oh wow, that is. Sorry about that. Dash one. Reflection. Yeah, just I just can't see where I'm going. Yeah, that interior in this conditions. Well. Yeah, sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah. Over in a flash.
And that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.